Hello and welcome to our monthly webinar. Today we have something a little bit different. First, let me present myself. I'm Guilherme Barbassa. I'm Actos CEO, and every month we bring a specialist to talk to us about some relevant topic on strategy management. But today we did something different, right? We are going to talk about strategy management, but without a specialist. We're going to bring some of the experience that Actio has with their clients, right? So I thought of doing something a little bit different today. Instead of doing a webinar per se, I thought of having more of a talk with you guys. Um, and discuss your reality given this topic that we're discussing today, that is fragmented systems in strategy management. That is a pain that we see in organizations that have an excess number of softwares and apps, and information starts getting fragmented throughout these systems, and strategy management becomes a lot more complex than it should be, right? So my suggestion is that we're going to open cameras, open mics, so that we can actually see each other and have more of a conversation than a one-way um, lecture, right? So welcome, Eve. We have someone from Transnet Port as well. Welcome. Please feel free to open your, I think I need to allow you, right, to do that. I'm doing that right now. Hey, so I'm allowing everybody to open their cameras and microphones so that you guys can actively participate with us. All right, so just some housekeeping before we go into the topic. We have a community of professionals in strategy management and performance management. So it's a place where you can exchange experiences, exchange information. So if you want to be part of this community, you can access it through the link that is going to be on the chat here. So you can just click on the link and be part of this community. And also, by the end, we have a feedback form. It's always good if you take a couple of minutes to fill in the feedback form and allow us to know what you thought and how can we improve on our webinars. And if you wish a certificate of participation, you can also fill that in the feedback form, and we will send it to you, right? Okay, I have prepared a few slides just to create a context for our talk. And after, I would like to do it in an interactive way, if possible. And after that, we can see that in practice in the software, how this fragmented issue is being dealt with, and how software can be a solution for that, right? I think I have allowed microphone and camera for everybody, so feel free to open them if you wish to ask me a question or participate here. I'll share my screen so we can take a look at the slides that I've prepared. Okay, so just to create some context, here we're talking about corporate management processes, but more specifically, strategy management and performance management, right? So in corporate management, you have risk management, people management, process management, and so on. Here we're focusing on strategy and performance, right? And when we talk about strategy and performance, there is a series of corporate processes that are part of this big umbrella that we call strategy and performance corporate processes. So we have governance, we have succession management, we have project management, audits, balanced scorecards, ISOs, certifications, innovation management, KPIs, OKRs, budgets, and so much more, right? I'm not going to go through all of these. The idea is there is a number of practices or processes or management models that that interact with each other, and we call corporate management. And each one of these can have a software to support that practice, right? So you can have a software for OKRs, for example, another software for your BIs or your dashboards or your balanced scorecard, another software for your Scrum projects or task management, and so on. So for each of these practices, we have a whole ecosystem of softwares to support that practice, right? And what we've been seeing in organizations is that as you adopt an app or a software for each of these practices, they stop interacting with themselves. This should be practices that make sense independently, but they are also part of a management system and they should interact with each other. But when you have apps or softwares for each of these, they stop talking to each other. They start acting as silos of information, right? And this is the reality that we see in most organizations. If we take a look at this chart is the number of SaaS apps on average for each organization, right? So the average number of SaaS apps. And we see that in 2015, we had only 8 SaaS apps on average for an organization. And this jumped to 80 in 2020 in just 5 years, then to 130 in 2022. This is the phenomenon that we call SaaS sprawl or app sprawl, right? It was the proliferation of SaaS applications in organizations. And it just boomed, right? From in 7 years, from 8 to 130. And all of these specialized apps came about and companies adopted them. And for each activity, each management practice, you had an app for that, or you have an app for that. But this created big problems in the organizations, right? Managing SaaS is a new problem for IT. So there are so many providers that managing it all is a huge problem, and integrating it all is a huge problem. So if you have 8 SaaS applications and you buy the ninth, okay, you're gonna integrate, this new SaaS application with 8 others to connect the information. But if you have 130 apps and you buy the 131st, how are you going to connect all this? It's impossible, right? So this has become a big pain in especially in larger corporations. So with the sprawl of apps, 40% of employees struggle to find data needed to effectively perform their task. So people are actually not being able to do their own work because they don't know where the information is, or the information is too scattered throughout these applications, right? And the number of apps available is making work more complex for employees. So the whole point of having softwares to support processes is to make the process simpler and streamline that process. We're seeing the reverse effect. More software is making the processes more complex to manage, right? So these are all information that we gather from Gartner, from the research that they do in organizations, right? And these have been the driving force for a new phenomenon, for the SaaS concentration now. So in the last few years, we've seen a reduction of the average number of SaaS apps in organizations from 130 to 106. This concentration is happening. It doesn't happen quickly because you have a number of transitions that you have to make, but we're seeing clearly that less softwares are doing more in organizations, right? So softwares are increasing their range or their scope of activities to do what other softwares are doing. So companies are choosing to have one provider of software that does more. And that's where Actio comes in, right? When we come in an organization to do strategy management or performance management or continuous improvement, we usually substitute 3 or 4 apps that are there already, each one doing a part of this management model. Right. So before I move on, I'd like to ask you guys if you feel this as well. If you feel this app sprawl happening in your organization, the number of software is increasing throughout the years, and has this created a problem for you? And how are you dealing with this? So maybe Eve, are you there? Can you share with us your experience with this? Or Jeet?
Picked on me.
Okay, sorry. Sorry to pick
No,
on you.
no, it's all right. These are very complex, especially across the health sector. which is the system is very fragmented, different layers, and the combination of publicly funded as well as private providers trying to implement, for example, digital is a very complex business and messy.
Yeah.
And because we cannot mandate, for example, um, suppliers, we have got lots of different suppliers. We cannot mandate which supply organization go for. That
Mhm.
creates a very friction in the system. Interoperability is not possible right away because of all that different system that don't speak to each other. But as we move, when we look 10 years ago, it was more fragmented even more, but we're trying to move to the system where, for example, England is divided into 7 regions, and that 7 regions, we've got thousands of providers, private and public funded. So we're trying to move to where within the system, stakeholders are able to procure a system that can try and speak to each other, but that is a real challenge. 15
Yeah.
years later, we're still talking about lack of interoperability within systems, and that creates big challenges. Because if I go to one hospital, I go to the next hospital, my records won't be there. So that this is just, we don't have a solution yet. So we're working through these, and it's taking years. Hence, yeah.
Yeah. So in our experience, it's actually gotten worse
Mm,
and not better because you've got more software to deal with, and this interoperability has become even a bigger problem.
yeah.
Um, and you mentioned softwares that I imagine are more operational softwares for the health system, but even from management layer, like strategy management, or I imagine you have something for the KPIs, you performance management or project management. All of that is also kind of fragmented. And if you see a project, you probably can see like the operational execution of that project, but why does that project exist? What strategic objective is it connected to?
Mm,
There you start to see the cracks
yeah.
in the information system, right? Yeah, that's our uh, day to day here, and that's one of the points that we try to solve, creating like an integrated platform, right? And not just products for individual
Yeah.
applications, right?
I think the only platform that has become a bit more integrated is the data, because previously each provider, hospitals, providers, primary care, they have different data sources. Now we've got a more national, but even that, it's not just like one, because these providers, these across the system on their strategic level, they've procured different systems. So you cannot mandate everybody just do it. So you have to use softer influencing kind of um, skills to make people see the value of having this integrated
Right.
national platform. But yeah, it is very messy. It's a wicked problem, which I don't think anyone can resolve it entirely. So yeah.
All right. It's a big challenge for sure. Um, okay, thanks, Eve, and thanks for your participation. And please interrupt me anytime that you wish to make a new comment or ask a question. Okay, going back here, so this is a problem that is relatively recent, the app sprawl, and the consequence is this concentration of apps, right? But when we talk about this concentration, it's not just on the app level, it's not just on the software level. You also have an integration of business practices, right? So I'll jump into this part now of how this fragmented information or practices throughout the organization um, reflects on software, but that's merely a reflection of what's behind that are the practices themselves. So it's extremely common for us to talk to some of our clients that have strategy management as one department that has their own processes, and for example, risk management that has another department with their own processes, and they don't talk to each other. So if I'm looking at a strategy objective, a strategic objective, and this strategic objective has risks attached to it, I can't see those risks in an integrated platform because it's treated as two completely separate and independent processes. And we see that throughout the organization. Strategy not connecting with operations, projects not connecting with operations or strategy, um, people management not connected with performance uh, or aligning of the organization in KPIs and goal cascading throughout the organization, not aligned with compensation, for example, or in bonus management, right? So there are so many disconnects in the strategy management, sorry, in the corporate management layer that we are focusing on that problem. How do we not let this disconnect, these cracks affect the results of the organization? How do we integrate that all of that, right? And since the playing field is so broad, we're talking about strategy, performance, risk, people, processes, projects, right? Uh, for this webinar, we focused on strategy and performance only. And we're going to look at the possible gaps within these these management processes, all right? So we can start with strategy management. And when we talk about strategy management, we're talking about strategy formulation, planning. So the formulation is where we look at the market, we will create a strategy. This is how we want to achieve our results. And the plan is how are we going to implement that strategy, right? So this is what we call the first steps of strategy management. Then we have to execute that plan. So the plan will have projects and action plans and goal cascading and so on, right? This is all part of the plan. Then we have to make it happen throughout the year. We have to monitor if what we planned is actually being done. And we have to control. We have to um, come in whenever the plan is not working or the strategy needs to be reformulated, right? So we have to do new plans or reformulate the strategy. So this cycle is what we call strategy management. And that's just one pillar of performance management as a whole. Another pillar is what we call performance management per se. That is the KPI tracking and going down into the details of performance management, of what is happening, what's the result, and why is the result that, right? So here we look at analytics, we look at BIs, right? Business intelligence software. So we can go granular in the data and understand the KPIs. So this is a little different from strategy management because we're not looking at the strategy itself. we're looking at the performance, the financial KPIs, and all of the KPIs that impact this financial performance, and really go deep into the data of what's happening where with who, right? And work with this reporting is a very uh, important part of performance management and analytics for sure. We also have another domain here that is goal cascading. So how do we align people's what we expect of delivery from everybody in the organization? So if we have a strategy, this strategy has to cascade throughout the organization, and everybody has to know their contribution to the corporate strategy. So this usually happens throughout the beginning of the year, uh, December, January, but this can vary a lot from organization to organization. But you put out the annual goals, and everybody starts creating their what are their objectives and their KPIs and projects to support that annual goal. And with that, you align the expectation of delivery for all of the organization, right? So this is very much, everything here is connected, right? Cascading with performance management, with strategy management, but many times they're treated as separate um, business practices, right? And even maybe by separate teams. Another domain that interacts with all of this, with strategy, performance, and goal cascading, is operational excellence. So once you cascade the strategy or the performance KPIs all the way to the operational level, you have to manage that operational level KPIs and goals, and make sure that you have continuous improvement, that operation is delivering according to plan, right? And that the processes are all aligned and integrated in delivering what is expected from them. So this is a very much uh, operational area within the company. And again, being another department that usually deals with operational excellence, you will see disconnects from strategy and performance management and goal cascading because it's different people involved, um, focusing on continuous improvement and so on. But many times they lose this connection, right? And start seeing operational excellence as something um, isolated from strategy or corporate performance, right? And finally, project and portfolio management. So all of this is also treated as a different domain many times. And as I mentioned with Eve, it's many times disconnected from strategy, from performance, or operational excellence. It starts being the project for the project and not the project for the objective that originated that project, right? So project and portfolio management is another domain that we see very often creating gaps or disconnects in the management model, right? Not because people want to, obviously, but because when they receive the mandate to do project and portfolio management, they dive into that, and the why starts being relegated as a um, second importance, right? So, in no way this will cover all of the management practices related to performance, right? We still have a bunch of others that live in the intersection of these domains, like ESG management, uh, that has a lot to do with projects and operational excellence as well. Board reporting. So, what do we report to the board? Individual goals. So, what is expected from each person's performance, right? And business transformation, very much related with strategy and projects and portfolio. So, these are just examples of practices that business practices related to performance that we see in organizations, right? And these practices, they come in a variety of, let's say, market brands, right? Which we see in the offerings that we see in the market. So we see things like Kaizen or Agile or Scrum, MBO, continuous improvement, Lean, Six Sigma, PMBOK, OKRs, balanced scorecard, and so on. These are just examples again, right? But that's the way we see the business management practice being offered in the market to be easier to understand. But then all of these practices, they have the objective of delivering these domains, right? Of making these domains concrete and tangible to be implemented in the organizations, right? Um, and well, Actio is our purpose is to integrate all of that into a single platform and not treat these different domains as different domains, but as part of one management model, right? That's our um, main value and delivery to our clients. Um, I'd like to go back and ask you guys again, um, if you see this disconnect in management practices in your organizations. Hillary, could I pick on you? Are you there? How do you see this, the execution of these business practices in your organization? Or maybe, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but Miyuni Lindokule, could you share with us how you see these domains that I just mentioned, like strategy, performance, goal cascading, continuous improvement or operational excellence, and project and portfolio management? Is it treated as an integrated model, or is it treated as separate uh, management practices in your organization?
Yeah, in my organization, which is TrustNet, I think we are seeing the them being we're starting to see them being treated as integrated, but we are at the very infancy of that process, because currently, as things stands, as a head of project of PMO myself, we find very little uh, linking between the strategy and the project that we come to execute. But there's that effort now within the organization to try to link that, rather than to have this project coming out of the blue, but you try to have each initiative within your space that is linked to a particular project, business objective or strategy that the business is driving. So that we are starting to now create, but we are at the very infancy of that process. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. I will jump into the software to try to show all of these domains as one management model and not as separate business practices, but all of it integrated into a single platform. Okay. So let me jump into the software. You guys are still seeing my screen, right? Okay. So as soon as I logged in the software, I'm seeing a strategic map here. Strategic map is a tool used typically with balanced scorecard, right? Where I see the strategic objectives through the perspectives, right, of financial, client, internal process, and learning and growth. And here I see the lights signaling how my strategy is going. So how are these strategic objectives being delivered? Are we meeting these objectives or not? And if we are not, I can just click on one of those to understand why, right? But first point is strategy management. So here I can literally see how my strategy is performing, and with one click, dive deep into why and what's going on with that strategic objective. So I clicked here in an objective that was adding value to the shareholder. Let me close down a few of these. Okay, so I clicked on the objective, add value to the shareholder, where the CEO is the person responsible for this KPI, for this objective, right? And this objective has a few things connected to it. It has a couple of KPIs measuring this objective. So I have EBITDA margin and EBITDA, and I can go into details here in each of these KPIs. I have a project portfolio supporting this objective. So this project portfolio, I can see that is a bit delayed, right? And I can see here the S-curve chart for the whole portfolio. I'm going to go into more details soon. And I can also see I have a risk attached to this strategic objective. So cash deficit, working capital. This risk, I can see the inherent risk, the residual risk after controls and action plan and mitigation plans, right? I can see the level of the risk today. I can see the controls, and they're actually outdated, should be work on this, and the mitigation plan here. But I'm not going to dive into risk right now. I'm going to focus on performance, right? But the point I just want to make is, even though we're focusing on performance, so on those 5 domains, right? Strategy management, performance, goal cascading, continuous improvement, and project and portfolio. The management model is actually broader than that. It involves people, processes, risks, right? It's a full integrated management model. Here I can also see an OKR. This OKR is connected to this strategic objective. And each of these I can open. For example, the OKR I'm opening in the key results, and eventually in another objective key results at a lower level, right? So I can start drilling down into each of these elements, be it OKRs, risks, projects, KPIs, right? I will do initially drill down into these KPIs. So I see that we're having a big problem here with our EBITDA. Let's try to understand what's going on, right? So I clicked on EBITDA. I have operation, expenses, I have costs, I have revenue, and I have a couple of risks here also connected to EBITDA. So I can see that my problem is not operational expenditure or costs, it's revenue. Not delivering on revenue, right? So this KPI, I can drill down again and continue opening it up to the operational level. So here we are seeing a little bit of the goal cascading that I mentioned, right? Where we can visualize and understand the delivery of each department, each directory, management, department, all the way down to the operational level. How are they contributing to the upper levels and eventually to the strategy, right? So I'm connecting everybody, making it very clear what's the expectation on delivery for each one, and if that's not delivered, what's the impact on the company's performance and on the company's strategy. So here I can see a KPI, right? Revenue British Columbia, where they're not meeting the target, the revenue target for this area, right? So the software will also provide a model to manage this result. So first thing the software will do is send an email to Luciano, the person responsible for this target, saying, hey, your target wasn't met this month. Please analyze what's going on and create a corrective plan so that next month we won't have the same problem, right? So what's Luciano gonna do? First thing, he will want to understand what's going on. So he can click on the KPI and, for example, enter a analytics dashboard. So he can drill down into the data to find out what's actually going on with that KPI. So we have, in this case, it's a Power BI dashboard connected to that KPI where he can use all the analytics tools of this of Power BI and do the filters, the cuts, the views, and understand exactly what's going on with that KPI. So this is a bit of what we talked about performance management, right? Being able to drill down into the data, understand who's responsible, what's going on with each of the performance KPIs that you have in the organization, right? Once you've done this and you understand what's going on, you can start treating it, right? So you can click on this light, for example, to do a deviation report. And in this deviation report, you're gonna put what are the facts. So what did you extract from that analytics tools of insights? You can put it here. You can create, for example, Pareto graphs, charts, right? And finally, you're going to list the causes. So why has that phenomenon happened, right? So you can just list causes, add some causes, or bring causes from the past. You can use the tools of cause analysis here, like Ishikawa diagrams, just ideas, right? Five whys, and so on. So there are a few tools that the software can provide to make sure to understand why that happened, right? And the causes that you consider critical, or fundamental, you can just click on the star and it will appear here on this list of causes to be treated. You can also use the AI that is embedded in the software for the AI to help you, guide you through the process of understanding the causes of this deviation, right? So I can activate the AI and ask to suggest potential causes, or just interact with me and guide me through the process of um, understanding the causes, or just review the causes that I've listed to see if there is something, missing. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but every time you see uh, this icon throughout the software, you can access our embedded AI to help in that activity, right? Because people aren't experts in this, so they need to learn how to do it, and the AI can help you with that. And for each of these causes, you can create actions, or just link actions that are already ongoing, right? And finally, you have here the action plan to correct uh, that problem or that deviation. So I've gone very quickly here, but the idea is you have an operational excellence process, or an operational process cycle behind each of these KPIs, right? So we talked a little bit about strategy. We talked a little bit about performance management. We talked a little bit about goal cascading. And now I just showed you for each of these goals, for each of these KPIs, you have an operational excellence model to put these KPIs into a continuous improvement process, right? So if you did not meet the target, the software will guide you to do the deviation treatment, and so on. What's missing is projects and portfolio, right? That we mentioned in the PowerPoint, and I did not show yet. So here, going back to our strategic objective, add value to the shareholder, we have a project portfolio here. So this is the summary of a bunch of projects that are being executed. And I see we have some of them delayed, right? 14% of the activities of the projects are delayed. And I also can clearly see here that the project should be done by now, but it's still only 83% executed. So let's dive into this project portfolio. It has 2 programs, and each of these programs have projects attached to it. And each of these projects I can click and navigate. This one is already completed, and this one is still delayed. So my problem is with this project of expansion into new markets. And I can click on it and navigate throughout this project as well. So let's take a look at the action plan for this project. So we have descriptions, what is being done, who's going to do it, when are they going to do it, and so on. So it's a full project management tool, right? some of these activities can be have sub-activities and so on. We can see critical path, we can see baselines and so on. So it's a full project management tool here. I can choose to see the baseline or critical path. So only this activity is in the critical path, and so on. I can also see this project as a Kanban chart, right? So it's the same project, same visualization, but I'm using a more agile view of the project where I can just click and drag the tickets here and open each of these activities into detail and see the task checklist, the dates, responsibilities, and so on. Okay. I'm going very quickly here just to show you the broader view of project and portfolio management. And in portfolio management, we have a series of reports and views of the project portfolio, not just each individual project like I'm showing here, right? So for each of these portfolios, programs, or projects, I can navigate and enter, for example, the registration sheet for this portfolio. So here I have all of the data about the portfolio, who's responsible, who are the sponsors, the areas, the baselines, budgets, scope management, S-curve, sub-projects, and so on. I'm not going to go through everything, but you have, permission controls, you have status reports from the project manager. I can connect to a Power BI, relationships, responsibility matrix, and so on. So again, it's a full project management software, but connected with the the whole management model. It's not isolated, right? So, for example, if I see here actions, this is a list of actions which I can filter. It's filter my own name here. So it's all of my actions, right? But here I'm seeing actions from projects, from action plans to meet targets and KPIs, from actions, from risk mitigation plans, from meetings that may have established an activity for myself, right? And so on. So it's an integrated platform. I won't have actions in one project management software, another action in my continuous improvement, operational excellence software, another action with task management just on my day-to-day activities, and so on. It's a whole integrated platform where we connect all of those 5 and even more, right? Like I mentioned, these are just examples, but all of the 5 domains of strategy management, performance management, goal cascading, portfolio and project management, and operational excellence in one business practice, in one software, right? I'd like to know if you guys have any questions, if you guys would like to see anything in particular within the software or bring any comments. I see that we've been joined by Richard. Richard, were you able to see this connection between the domains that I mentioned of strategy, performance, goal cascading, uh, portfolio and project management, and operational excellence in one model here?
Yes, I did. Thank you for showing that.
Thanks. And would you like to make any comments on, I'm not sure, I was presenting, I didn't see when you came in, on how your organization deals with these different domains. Are they separate, dealt in separate departments, teams, and business practices, or do you already integrate that into one corporate management model?
Currently, it's separate, using different tools, so it is good to see it together. Um, I know I'll probably have to watch the recording of this session
Sure.
just to make sure I have all the details down. But yeah, normally those are separate. So it is good to see them together. The only question though that I would have is sometimes you have different audiences and maybe they may not need to see different sections and so that when I go back over the recording, that's the piece that I'll be looking for. How do
Yeah.
you kind of change the views for certain audiences?
Yeah. So you have profiles, so you can create user profiles, and every user profile you will attribute which features in the software it has access to, right? So, for example, indicators, who can change KPIs, right? And so on. And you have also the organizational structure, right? So when you create a new user, you attach that user to a department. For example, uh, you can see here active software, CEO, and you can open the organizational structure here. And if someone is in this area, financial administrative board, it will see only this information, what is on their level and below their level. It will not see in a project in this level if you don't allow it to, right? So using these two structures, one user profile that establishes what they can do in the software, and organizational structure that establishes where they can see, right? You can do a lot of control on how each user interacts with the software, the level of complexity that they will interact, and what they can see. And you have a lot of possibilities of uh, specifying exceptions, right? So I'm going to enter here an example. I have a list of projects that are ongoing. Okay. I will, for example, click on this portfolio and come in governance. For this particular portfolio, I can allow someone that would normally not have access to the software to have access to the software. So I'll give her read-only access, for example, right? So you have the default access on the software, and you can treat exceptions, right? And for example, this same person, Cecilia, let's take a look at what she can see, right? So this is her. I'm going to edit her profile, permissions by area. She actually can change basically everything, but I can open the organizational chart here and say, okay, she cannot change. She has no access to the company, and she will only have access to this controller area down, right? So controller and subordinated areas from control. So the default is people usually access their area and subordinated area, but you can change that from person to person. Okay? So you wouldn't have seen that in the video because I hadn't addressed it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Well, that's the time we have for today. I thank everybody for participating, and sorry for calling you into the talk, but it's important to get your feedback and share your experience with everybody else that is here with us. Thank you very much. Remember to fill in the feedback form that is in the chat, right? And thanks for participating. See you in our next webinar. Bye.